The family of this guy, Mr. Dexter Reed, we heard from his parents as well as his attorneys. His attorneys say that these were tactical officers in plain clothes and that they were driving an unmarked SUV before this traffic stop occurred. I want you to take a look at video from the press conference earlier today. The family speaking with the media.
Okay, question. A bunch of dudes in plain clothes run up to your car, demand you roll the window down with pistols out. What do you do if you are armed? Question. Just think about it. Okay? Don't try to run it through the lens of Marxist, Leninist, Maoist theory or anything like that. What do you do as a human fucking being?
Reed's loved ones addressing reporters this afternoon after Copa releasing that police body camera footage. They're asking for Mayor Brandon Johnson and Chief Larry Snelling to disband these tactical units that they say, the family says, have been terrorizing communities on the city's south and west sides. They're also calling on the state's attorney for...
Cops have gangs too, by the way. Like, if you know anything about the LAPD, they have several gangs. As a matter of fact, there's a whole Wikipedia page for Los Angeles Sheriff's Gangs. LASD. So it's not LAPD. They're separate. Sheriffs and police departments usually separate. But this is a list of gangs whose members have been associated with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, typically deputies. First reports indicate that the LASD has had a problem with gangs, literally, in the same organizations that are entrusted to stop gangs. But the gangs are in the cops. They're inside your walls. And this has gone on since the 70s. So let's just listen to some of the fucking names of some of these groups. You've got the Bandidos, you've got the Buffalo Soldiers, the African American deputies clique. You've got the Cavemen, you've got the Compton Executioners. Members of the Executioners are deputies operating out of the Compton station of the LASD. These deputies share a tattoo, which features a skeleton with an assault rifle and a military-style helmet. The gang was founded by former 2000 Boys member Andy Toon. Members of the Executioners are drawn from deputies who work at the Compton station of the LASD. Knock LA has reported that the gang consists of around 80 members. Potential recruits are chosen based on past acts of violence against members of the Compton community, and recruits cannot be black or female. So you're patrolling a majority, if I recall correctly, Compton is mostly Latino now, but you're patrolling a mostly non-white. Well, they didn't say anything about members of the Executioners not being Latino, so I guess you could have Latino members of the of this gang, but black people. Like Compton is known as a black neighborhood, so you've got these fucking assholes running around that hate black people, and they can't be black. So the Klan. That's what this is. The fucking Klan. Demographics of Compton. This is interesting. So in 2010, the black percentage of the population was 32%, and the Latino percentage of the population was 65%. So, wild demographic shift. Apparently, this is happening in a lot of working class black neighborhoods of Los Angeles. I mean, Los Angeles did originally belong to Mexico, so it's really not all that surprising.
Criminal indictments against the officers involved. Now, a little bit more about Dexter Reed. He's 26 years old, previously a basketball standout at Westinghouse High School here on the city's west side. He, in fact, led the team to a regional championship, loved ones tell us. They say he loved basketball and cooking and wanted to be a broadcaster. Here's what his mom said at today's press conference.
He had just bought his new car 3 days before that, and he was just riding around in his car. He said, "Mom, going for a ride," and they killed him.
This woman can't even fucking stand up, and you got these fucking white assholes that are like, "Oh well, he shouldn't have shot at the cops." I'm like, bruh, he did not know that they were cops. If he knew that they were cops, like, okay. Black man in Chicago is not going to try to get into a one-man shootout with the police, okay? This isn't GTA. But there needs to be, an abolition of these fucking out of uniform assholes that are basically gangs that are allowed to just roam around and terrorize the black neighborhoods of Chicago.
Thank you. Thank you.
This guy should still be fucking alive. There's no reason why he should be dead. And that fucking group that's going around doing this shit, murdering people for no reason, entrapping people and all sorts of other fucked up shit, they should not be allowed to exist. They need to be in re-education camps, or preferably worm food.
Dexter got out of his car, unarmed, and was shot by the police. Based on the COPA report that you all received this morning, 96 rounds were fired by these officers.
Now, we must also share with you that we did see in that video that COPA released a video of what appeared to be a gun laying in the seat of the car. Now, back out here live, you also are looking at police barricades that Streets and Santa Cruz just dropped off and set up. We also know that police are standing by as within the next 2 hours or so, various activist groups will arrive here outside of the 11th District to protest in favor of this family, calling for justice for Dexter Reed. Of course, we'll continue to follow this story and keep you updated on air and online.
Fuck justice, we need vengeance. So
And let's get to some breaking news.
This is the police video.
Right now, we've been telling you about all
That dude has a fucking ear stud in. I think the mayor of New York has one too.
morning. Video was just released within the hour of a deadly shooting.
Window down.
Talk about it on the other side. Let's watch.
Roll the window down. What are you
Again, this kid, he just bought his fucking new car.
doing? Roll this one down. Roll that one down too. Hey, don't roll the window up. Don't roll.
Okay, you haven't identified yourself as a police officer. Why would this guy allow you to open his fucking door? People get carjacked this way.
The window up. Okay. Do not roll the window up. Lock the doors now. Unlock the doors now. Unlock the doors now. Open the door now.
Again, if you were in this position, what would you do?
Open the door now. Open the door now. 1164 David, shots fired, shots fired. Hey!
And that is
I love how, like, fucking, okay, you put this guy in a position where he's going to shoot at you. You're demanding he open his door. This guy doesn't know if he's about to be carjacked or what. So, of course, if he's armed, he's going to fucking shoot at you. He's not going to sit and let himself be carjacked if he has a device with him that can end the possibility of him being carjacked, okay? This is a fucking rough-ass neighborhood of Chicago. Shit like this happens all the time. So you haven't identified yourself as a police officer. You didn't say, hey, police or anything. And even if you did, like, people impersonate cops all the time to commit crimes. That's something that's well known.
just the beginning of the shooting. Again, 90.
And they shot this guy fucking 96 times. Well, they fired 96 bullets. I don't know how many bullets hit the guy, but they basically aired this dude out for an easily preventable thing. Like, this was a fucking traffic stop. And if he was a criminal, if he was a badass, if he was trying to out to fucking hurt people, he wouldn't have stopped for the cops in the first place. He didn't even know these people were cops.
6 shots fired within the span of just 41 seconds. COPA's analysis.
96 shots in how many seconds?
1 seconds. COPA's analysis span of just 41 seconds.
96 shots in 41 seconds.
COPA's analysis of this video indicates that the man behind the wheel there, 26-year-old Dexter Reed, indeed fired first. The catalyst for
It doesn't fucking matter.
this stop, which is a little curious here. You don't usually have 5 officers in plain clothes addressing a traffic stop, but I'm sure that will be something we will
Because they're a fucking gang, that's why.
hear more about in the press conference, which is coming your way in about 13 minutes. You know, Brad, bringing you back in here, one of the key questions is, of course, what
Stand your ground only applies if you're rich, cis, and mainly white. Why do you have to stack up all those? Stand your ground only applies if you are white. Just say that.
was bringing so many officers to surround that vehicle. This is a gentleman who we understand did have a history in the last few weeks before this shooting, which killed him, that he had brought a weapon into a street festival. But what
Again, who cares?
Whether or not that history plays a part in this incident.
Did he shoot anybody, though?
And as we watch this, you can see the officer reaching for that handle, asking him to roll down that window. In the background, and I don't
Again, what would you do?
know we could hear it in our clip that we played, you hear another officer saying, "Do you see his hand?"
This is how fucked up America is. That's how you can tell. Like, I keep seeing these people saying that if we don't endorse Biden, then we're basically saying fuck democracy. No, there is no democracy in this country. In what democracy, in what reasonable society are citizens subject to the wishes and whims and flights of fancy of unaccountable individuals that can do whatever they want if they flash a gun? They didn't even flash a badge. They just flashed a gun. Like, that's gangsterismo. That's banditry. That's not a stable democracy that's long for this world.
These are all the things that when we watch these videos, knowing what happens at the end of the line, we look and see, what did officers do? What did they know? What could they
You just saw what they did.
have expected to know? So those are the critical questions here. But the number of shots fired, 96 shots fired in the span of just 41 seconds. I want to show you a statement that COPA, the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, just released. Again, they're saying that the catalyst for this was a traffic stop, that he was purportedly not wearing a seatbelt, that the officers...
So it says, on March 21st, 2024, the Chicago Police Department notified COPA of an officer-involved shooting. Preliminary reports indicate that this incident began when 5 Chicago police officers assigned to an 11th District Tactical Unit engaged in a traffic stop of Dexter Reed Jr. for purportedly not wearing a seatbelt. They murdered this dude because he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Upon stopping Mr. Reed, multiple officers surrounded his vehicle, with guns out, mind you, while giving verbal commands, again, for not wearing a seatbelt. When Mr. Reed did not comply with these commands, officers pointed their firearms at Mr. Reed, and ultimately there was an exchange of gunfire, which left Mr. Reed dead and an officer shot in the forearm. Review of video footage and initial reports appears to confirm that Mr. Reed shot first, striking the officer, and 4 officers returned fire. Available preliminary evidence also confirms that officers returned fire approximately 96 times over a period of 41 seconds, including after Mr. Reed exited his vehicle and fell to the ground. So they would continue to shoot at this guy after he had gotten out of the car and fell out of the ground after being fucking shot. Mr. Reed was struck by the gunfire multiple times and was transported to the hospital and later pronounced deceased. A gun was recovered on the front passenger seat of Mr. Reed's vehicle.
Pointed their firearms, and their investigation confirmed. All we have is that raw material and the statement from COPA. So, Brad, again, coming up in about 10 minutes' time, we're going to hear from Mayor Johnson, we're going to hear from COPA, and we're going to hear from the state's attorney to kind of comb through and then presumably answer some of the very difficult questions that sit before us.
Okay.
Very difficult questions. This is cut and fucking dried. They murdered this guy. Good Kids, Mad City. Pretty good work. Black and brown youth united in fighting to end violence in our cities. We call for more resources for our communities and the abolition of police. So, as I already mentioned, the kid was a basketball star. He loved basketball. He actually guided his team to a championship, and he wanted to be a cook and a broadcaster. And for not wearing a seatbelt, he now walks amongst the ancestors. It won't stop until we stop it. Like, that's literally the title of this fucking video. It will not stop until we stop it. All the marching, all the demands for accountability. These people don't give a shit. Why is there a tactical unit roaming the streets of Chicago? In short, that's the lie. There was a press conference in Demo today. Dexter Reed should be alive. Dexter Reed was killed by CPD on March 21st, 24. Tell the 11th District that public execution of our community members will not be tolerated. We will gather in support and solidarity with the Dexter Reed family. The demands are hold Chicago Police Department accountable, disband tactical teams, fire killer cops, end racial profiling, and end pretextual stops. CPD fired nearly 100 rounds, several of which definitely hit this kid's body. So, all power to the people, and it won't stop until we stop it. That's the line. Why are people threatened by black people having power? Well, how do we define power? Power is the ability to define a phenomenon and make it act in the desired manner. Basically, taking into, just as an example, the Dexter Reed situation. a powerful community would be able to get rid of these cops, disband these tactical teams, and get justice for this kid. But because we aren't a powerful people in this country, because for a myriad of reasons, mainly because we're divided and we tend to focus on stupid shit as opposed to actually conquering power. We don't have any power. That's why they're able to keep doing this shit to us and nothing happens. We should learn from our Palestinian comrades. Like, they're actually holding Biden accountable and they're making Biden pay for continuing to be complicit and active in the destruction of their people. So why are people threatened by black people seeking power? Because they're afraid of our justice and the end of their parasitic way of life. Like, this entire country and its standard of living is propped up by the exploitation of black people in Africa, in the Caribbean, in Latin America, and of course here at home. The FBI used an undercover cop with pink hair to spy on activists and manufacture crimes. Ooh. The young woman with long pink hair claimed to be from Washington State. One day during the summer of 2020, she walked into the Chinook Center, a community space for left-wing activists in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and offered to volunteer. She dressed in a way that was sort of notable, but no one among the activists found that unusual or alarming. Everyone has their own style. They accepted her into the community. This is why you need to do research on people. Like, you don't know anybody from Washington State that you can, like, dig into. Like, did she give you a fake name? She said her name was Chelsea. She also implied that she was a sex worker. Of course, there's nothing wrong with being a sex worker, but it's really important for you to allow people to have, like, roots, like deep roots in your movement, and allow them to start, like, getting in the front page or having speaking spots. You need to vet people. Don't just fall for appearances and shit. Like, this is her on the left here. Like, nobody's just going to come out and walk around with a t-shirt that says police on it, okay? Because that's not what they do. So how do they work? Once Rogers gained trust among the activists, her name is April Rogers. So once April Rogers gained trust amongst the activists, she tried to set up at least 2 young men in gun-running conspiracies. Her tactics mirrored those of another pig named Windecker, who tried to entrap 2 Denver racial justice activists in crimes, including an FBI-engineered plot to assassinate Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser that went nowhere. So this journalist, Trevor Aronson, did a lot of research because he's a good journalist, and he got search warrant applications, body camera footage, and a bunch of other stuff. Social media exploitation. Fake online identities for a social media exploitation team. This is why, like, you should not be recruiting people off social media. You don't know who the fuck these people are. And if you've developed a reputation for being a sort of edgy, wild, Antifa type group, they're going to be interested in you, and they're going to send people to make easy cases. Like, that's what all this shit is about. They're trying to make easy cases to fuck people over. Why? Because they get more funding, they get more money. Yeah, be very leery about, like, people who you talk to on the fucking internet. I mean, it's been done to death. It's been said a million times, but some people don't seem to get it. Visiting Karl Marx's grave in London is the Hajj for white boys. You also have the Haymarket Memorial in Chicago. I think Weatherman blew it up like 3 or 4 times. The Virginia Kikoas, a pro-gun prepper militia based in Eastern Virginia and formerly affiliated with the Boog movement, tells News to Share that they have recently kicked out a member they believe may have been plotting an explosive-related entrapment attempt against the group, or worse. Russell Richardson Vane IV first made contact with the Virginia Kikoas in April of 22, according to the group's leader Eddie Ray, who goes by Ice, and member Cody Beckner, who goes by Sasquatch. Vane allegedly adopted the call sign Duke. The pair provided extensive screenshots and documents showing that since joining, Vane, as Duke, engaged in an escalating sequence of unusual behavior that included apparent provocations for the group to develop homemade explosives. To be
Gun
used
Prepper
for what
militia
purpose,
based
I
in
wonder?
Eastern Virginia and formerly affiliated with the Boogaloo movement tells News to Share that they recently kicked out a member they believe may have been plotting an entrapment attempt against the group, or worse. Russell Richardson Vane IV first made contact with the Virginia Cacoas in April of 2022.
Honestly, I don't judge people based on their name, but that name just fucking screams cop.
According to the group's leader Eddie Ray, who goes by Ice, and member Cody Beckner, who goes
Oh my god. These are our enemies?
by Sasquatch. The pair provided extensive screenshots and documents showing that since joining, Vane, who went by Duke, engaged in an escalating sequence of unusual
Keck Duke.
behavior that included apparent provocations for the group to develop homemade explosives. Sasquatch and Ice spoke exclusively to News to Share to provide a thorough timeline of events that led up to Duke being removed from their organization.
So we're here today to let everyone
These guys are like, they look like Pat Soaks. That's what they look like.
out there know about a guy we had in our group that did some
But again, these people have the potential to engage in gratuitous acts of violence, so we should despise them tactically, but we should take them seriously strategically.
things that we had.
Aren't these white nationalists? Honestly, I'm at the point of thinking that like every white person in the United States that's to the right of Bernie Sanders is a white nationalist of some type or other. Hell, even some who claim to be to the left of Bernie Sanders are white nationalists of some type or other.
To release him for his, he goes by Duke, but
Meal Team 6.
his name's Russell Richardson Vane
Gravy Seals.
the fourth.
Essentially, we had an individual who joined up with us.
And this guy's his code name or whatever is Sasquatch. I mean he picked, at least he's aware of himself. Like he picked the name that fits him.
And unfortunately was trying to pass some pretty serious information that we did not want anything to do with, whether it was from his own stupidity that he didn't know any better, or he had some malicious intent. We had to let him go, and because of this we're trying to let other people know what to watch out for in case
With him in April of 2022.
So he pretty much reached out to us through back then I believe it was Twitter.
Yeah. Number one thing, like if somebody just drops with a bunch of bullshit, like, hey, I know how to make a pipe bomb on Twitter. Yeah, it's probably he's either an imbecile, which you don't want in your organization, or he's a pig, which you don't want in your organization. Neither one of those people mean you any good.
We put him into a recruiting chat where we asked him a bunch of questions and this, that, and the third. Invited him for
No, this is not the same group that had members charged for attempting to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. These people are in Virginia. That case was in Michigan. 2 different states.
face
Learn to geography.
meeting with pretty much the whole group at that point. Some people were weirded out by him, I guess his personality. I thought he was just trying to fit in.
and his job.
In his job. That he
He looks like a hobbit.
kind of alleviated to that he worked for the CIA.
Alleviated. That's not what that word means, dum-dum.
We're at our core, the Cacoas are a prepper group, and we brought him on even though we were kind of iffy at first, but he was brought on ultimately.
What the fuck do the Austin Red Guards have with the Boogaloo movie? This is why I ignore chat. Like, what relationship do they have with the Boogs? This is why I ignore chat.
Because of the fact that if
I'll just be saying shit.
something bad was to happen anywhere in the world, we would know about
He had malicious intents, unlike our innocent intent of bigots running around heavily armed. A lot of preppers, like, yeah, a lot of them are racists, but a lot of them are like they do the whole, like, oh, we accept everybody, but you have to be an Uncle Tom, though. Like, we'll accept you if you're like fucking, if you're like fucking the fucking prosecutor from the Boondocks.
it first, or at least as soon as the CIA would.
So they'll take Uncle Ruckus. They won't take me. I don't want to hang out in the woods with a bunch of white people anyways. That's how you end up getting hunted.
And that, or whatever miscellaneous.
No, these are not the Austin Red Guards. They're a whole different type of imbecile. Thankfully, they are currently in shambles. They don't exist anymore.
And intelligence department he worked for, he said the CIA to me, that we would know before any other people would know. We could get away from major cities and things of that nature. So that's why we brought him on.
Dumbass, you shouldn't have brought him on in the first place. Why would you? People don't talk about shit like this on Twitter or Discord.
But he was kind of quirky, and some of the members thought maybe that it was too big of a risk, but we did, like I said.
It's good to see that the right wing has the same issues with recruitment that the left does.
We left.
Except the right wing is more like apt to hurt people.
Him in a recruitment chat to kind of monitor him and see what he might say, if he might slip up. You know, is this guy really who he says he is? So on.
No.
And so forth. That, you know, just to cover our bases and make sure we're not letting in someone who had malicious intent.
You could have determined that he had malicious intent from the first fucking conversation that you had with him.
He reaches out and asks if we have a group fund, which we do not. Everybody pays their own way.
Good end caps.
I told him that, which was kind of weird to me because groups that are funded usually could fall under certain federal laws. Then about a couple of days after that, he asked if he could make his own branch of Cocoas in Northern Virginia, which we told him no. He wasn't even a Cocoa yet.
But he didn't name all the brands of cereal.
So that kind of gave us red flags, which is why he stayed in our recruiting chat so long.
Why did it alarm you to have him asking about money and to ask about starting a new chapter of your militia?
Well, as far as asking money, that kind of like I said, sets you up for some type of federal law. If
RICO charges.
The RICO Act. And then asking to make his own group. He didn't even know who we were as a group yet. He just met us one time, face to face.
A recruitment chat for prospective members for over a year, but gave him full status as a member in the summer of 2023. In August
Proud militia violent extremist.
2023, the Virginia Cocoas held a joint armed rally with the Last Sons of Liberty militia led by Mike Dunn at the Gloucester School Board building, where the legality of carrying firearms is currently being disputed in court. Duke could be seen pointing his rifle into a parking lot.
He was in the recruitment chat for about a year, thereabouts, and we brought him out of the recruitment chat because things are heating up in the world, and we thought with his skill set, with his job, that he would be able to warn us if something bad would happen. It wasn't long.
You dumb motherfucker.
After that the August event in Gloucester happened. And that's when he went from being a quieter member in the chats to being a more vocal, person, because people met him. He did some things at the Gloucester rally that, people looked at him, I guess he was the one who went prone, and everyone was like, oh my God, this guy went prone. So he became a...
Wait, you got clout just by laying down on the fucking ground?
Someone who was talked about, and he started talking a lot more in the chats at that point. That's when he became really, vocal in our...
All you got to do to get clout with these Cocoas is to lay down on the fucking ground and point your rifle into a fucking parking lot. Jesus Christ, it's a wonder they hadn't been infiltrated before. Like by like several different agencies. It's a wonder you all are just a bunch of feds spying on each other, trying to trap each other.
In our actual chats.
Did his behavior at Gloucester bother you at the time?
He was being more tactical than he needed.
Yeah, thinking about it right now, yeah, it did kind of...
Thinking about it? You're lucky you're not thinking about it from You're lucky you're not thinking about it from Supermax, bro.
Bother me because he when he went prone, his muzzle was pointed in a direction that was kind of like, there's cars going that way. Now that you think about it.
Yeah, you should have thought about this at the fucking... Bro. You know, I call leftists stupid a lot, but it is heartening to see that our enemies, our people who are potentially our enemies, are just as stupid as we are, if not stupider.
But it was that day when he came down from where he lives to stay.
They all look like IDF officers.
Because he lives far away.
Yeah, especially the guy on the right.
He stayed at my house that night. That I asked him directly, like, to tell me directly if he worked for the CIA, and that's where he said to me is that he was a type of defense intelligence analyst for the CIA, which, I mean, kind of what we kind of figured that he was alluding to at that point. So up to that point, that's who we thought this man was.
December training, about 3 days before, he asked if he...
I got a new recruit from South America to come to training this weekend. Can I invite him? Lots of Latinos value the Constitution, and he gives us an exit immigration backup option. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Yeah, fucking Peru is just going to let a bunch of Americans just swarm into their country because they know a Peruvian citizen.
Could bring a friend, but we have certain things we do before.
In a war, education doesn't mean shit. Your ability to mobilize and organize people. It doesn't matter if you have a fucking degree. You'll be dead and you'll still have a piece of paper. In a war, it's an entirely different context. Like, having a college education, being educated, does not necessarily mean that you're more intelligent than somebody that doesn't. The left needs to stop thinking that. It means that you're able to obfuscate your bullshit a lot better, but it doesn't necessarily make you more intelligent. A bullet will fly right through your brain regardless of you, whether or not you have a PhD or whether or not you're a high school dropout.
We let anybody meet the whole group or get involved with the whole group. I told him, no, that's not the place. We were doing training at another group.
Hey, I actually guessed where he was from.
Property. On top of that, he seemed to understand, sort of.
He aligns with Second Amendment rights and a moderate outlook on race relations. So he's, what, he's Juan Perón instead of Mussolini?
And the day before training, he said that he wouldn't be able to make it. He felt sick or something. Something was going on. Then fast forward to January 15th, which was Virginia's lobby day this past year. He came. We did we pretty much stand for our Second Amendment on lobby day. As we concluded that, made it back to our vehicles.
Jesus, look at the size of this unit. Yeah, he picked the right name for himself, fucking Sasquatch. Look at that gut.
Made it back to our vehicles. He never even said bye, he just got in his car and left, which was kind of odd because after we do any type of event publicly, we always have like a after action review, what went good, what went wrong, what could we do better, and then we go have lunch. Well, he, without saying bye to anybody, he got in his car and left, which was kind of odd to us at that time.
He, you know, and he also, with the guy he wanted to bring, questionable if the gentleman, now there's, like, I'm not pointing this in any way, I'm just giving you the facts, is that what he said, the gentleman was from South America. Well, is it even legal for this person to have guns and use guns in the United States? I'm not familiar with that, but
to be clear, we don't agree with any gun laws.
Yeah, we don't agree with any gun laws. However, with his history of bringing up sketchy stuff, and now he's trying to bring somewhat sketchy people around, you know, that may or may not be breaking laws by
if these sketchy looking motherfuckers think that you're sketchy, then you're sketchy.
Having guns, and, you know, it's just added crap that we don't need.
5th, I get a direct message from this individual asking
Keck Duke
if I would be interested, or if it's too early, I believe it said,
Homemade explosives.
To talk about HMEs, at which point...
But if this guy was the operator that he was, like, that he claimed to be, he wouldn't be talking about making this shit. This shit'll blow your fucking arms off if you don't know what you're doing.
Responded, I was like, well, what HME's question?
I kind of know quite a bit about this shit. I did blow up a swing set after all. Like, if you don't know what the fuck you're doing, you are going to blow your hands off. I did not blow up a swing set. I'm being facetious.
Mark, and he responded with homemade emoji symbol of blowing up. And I responded with, no, that's not, we don't care to know about that. We had a leadership chat and we had a video call with him talking about what he can and can't do as part of our group, and we're not about that. We don't care to know about that. On February 5th, I get a...
According to Ice and Sasquatch, Duke brought up homemade explosives a second time in 1 week, this time in a group chat including multiple Virginia militia groups. However, they say, this chat was later set to auto-delete. While the original messages have apparently vanished, some evidence of their group's leaders discussing what to do about them were preserved.
On the 7th of February, he posted in a non-vetted group chat that has multiple groups, telling people that they needed to have at least 30% hydrogen peroxide on them.
The Shining Path will get that. What Shining Path? There is no more fucking Shining Path. There hasn't been a Shining Path since the 90s.
At all times, which at the time I didn't put two and two together.
Yeah, you seem like somebody that's not really good at putting two and two together, buddy.
It was probably a couple hours after that when some of us in leadership talked.
I don't know if he meant it that way. I hope he didn't. I just happen to know what you can do with peroxide. Just from, reading anarchist cookbooks and shit like that.
Oh my god. The anarchist cookbook. The anarchist cookbook. Every fucking 14-year-old knows that the anarchist cookbook is a recipe to fuck yourself up.
I hope that's not what he was hinting at. But if it was, yeah, we need to shut that shit down, because that's not what we're about. But,
So what are y'all about? Just fucking LARPing? Look at this dude that's kneeling over here.
Yeah, hopefully that's not what he was talking about. That's Fed shit.
Ice is an Army veteran. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't dig that shit at all, bro. No sirree D Bob.
No sirree D Bob.
That's a smack on the PP for sure.
Well, that was gay.
I'm not about it, and us even talking about that, like, let's just say somebody let something slip like that. Not only is that not what we're about, at least not this stage in the game, but let somebody say some shit like that in a Fed here or one of our training partners like Virginia Liberty.
A lot of the FASH have military and police connections. Wow, next thing you're going to do is tell me that there was a solar eclipse yesterday.
Liberty Guard here. They're cut us.
Isn't the anarchist cookbook banned to read in the USA? No.
They're completely cut us. Because they ain't about that shit either. %. If he keeps going on about shit like this, then
So apparently these people don't want to kill any people. They just want to smack each other's PPs.
I don't know what to do other than
They're into CBT, and I don't mean cognitive behavioral therapy.
They're fucking give
I guess everybody has the right to get their rocks off however they want to.
him a warning, and then if he keeps going on, cut him loose. I don't know.
These fucking rednecks. These fucking rednecks. They just, I don't know, but he sound real queer. He sound real suspicious.
Had a more stern talk with him through video chat. I told him that this was not allowed, and like, you need to knock it off. Don't do it again.
If you talk about that again, I'ma smack your pay-pay.
And if you do, we will have to do something up to releasing you.
We started talking in our group chat,
Hey, finna Whitmer plot my ass.
or our leadership chat.
Well, at least these guys seem to be somewhat more intelligent than the other wackos that comprise this movement. Of course, intelligent enemies aren't a good thing.
About this issue, like immediately, like, I'm not going to be Whitmered. This is not something we're for. He's doing it again. This is the second time that he's done this.
Nope, I'm not getting caught up in bullshit like that. I got family and my freedom. I will walk away real quick, not risking that shit for nothing or nobody. Hey, smart hoss.
We need to take some kind of action because this is not who we're about, and I'm not getting tied up in this mess.
This particular thing, the February 7th interactions in the group chat, do not exist. Why is that?
They were deleted because everyone was so sketched out. The knee-jerk reaction from one of our members, one of our members in our leadership, you want to say Goose? You want me to say the...
Yeah, that's fine.
One of our members in leadership, Goose, put the settings on the chat to delete those messages because we didn't want it tied with us, and to protect our friends and other groups, we didn't want it to...
I'm watching this because this shit could be like really relevant to a lot of leftists, because these same types of people like Duke, they infect the left as well. And in many cases, you're just fucking morons, but in a lot of cases, they are people that work for nefarious agencies that we don't want to get wrapped up in. So that's why I'm watching these rednecks.
February training where we were in person and leadership could actually talk in person about the situation. We all came to an agreement that we were going to give him more chances than we probably should have. We're going to give him about 60 days probation. Don't fuck up, don't do this, don't do that.
According to documents provided by the Kakoas, Duke became less active after being warned a second time about discussing explosives. A few days later, Duke spoke privately with another member, callsign Preacher. Duke appeared to acknowledge his earlier request that the group collect hydrogen peroxide, a component that can be used in explosives, but then described legal purposes for the chemical and suggested the group was, quote, limiting themselves by not engaging with it.
I got to say, I'm thinking very strongly about doing my own thing. Okay, like, bro, if I was in charge of this group, I'd be like, you know what? Yeah, deuces. Yeah, go do your own thing. Go blow your own fucking self up or go get your own fucking self arrested. Like, no. Like they said in the fucking beginning, this is Rico shit. This is Rico shit. Like, this is what they're trying to do to Cop City. As soon as you get a bunch of people together and you start talking about shit like this, you are going to be in trouble with the feds.
Week or 2 weeks, I reach out, say, hey, how's it going? But he messaged me back and he said he didn't feel well, that he had took a day off of work, and ultimately he took the day off of work because the day before his coworker had been arrested for...
It's really sad. Rednecks back in the day used to be revolutionary socialists. No, the fuck they weren't. The name redneck came from slave overseers that used to be out. Their job was to beat my ancestors' ass, and they were out in the sun with us, and they either got a farmer's tan or the back of their neck turned red. That's where they got the name from. I don't know why people keep trying to revise this fucking history or give white people some type of revolutionary history in the United States, but that is not where that term came from. There were certain strata of really, really poor Appalachian farmers and miners who did shit like Blair Mountain, but by and large, those people were racist as hell and they despised black people, and their greatest aspiration in life was to own a handful of slaves that they would beat the shit to get out the cotton crop.
Supposedly printing off bomb making material or instructional material or some sort.
It is. They're the same fucking thing.
And it sketched him out because he thought they were coming for him too. And that was kind of weird. I hadn't heard from him. I messaged him.
Why are y'all still trying to fucking talk to this dude?
At one point in time. And mind you, this whole time we thought he was a member of the CIA. Well, he sends us a link of something. If you type the link out and you look at it, it has stuff.
No, he doesn't even know what fucking government agency he works for now.
To do with these explosive stuff. You know, it has stuff about counterterrorism and insurgencies and explosives, homemade explosives and all stuff like that, you know. But it's from the NGA.
Do I think that Tariq Nasheed is an agent that is pushing the division between what he calls FBA and all of the black communities? I mean, anything is possible. I don't call anybody an agent or a Fed unless I have like hardcore proof. But I mean, yeah, like a lot of, if you have somebody whose main purpose seems to be to sow division and start shit, I mean, you should at least look at them sideways. But no, some people are just fucking stupid. Some people just get off on creating division. Some people just like hearing themselves talk. So now, MAGA communism and patriotic socialism, yeah, that shit is definitely an op. It's a LaRouche op, and we don't know who fucking is pulling the LaRouche movement strings, but it's probably one of those 3-letter agencies. Like there's too much evidence for it to be otherwise. So yeah.
The National Geospatial Intelligence Agency.
They're actually building like a giant building in St. Louis right now.
I guess I had no idea who that was, but apparently our guy, Preacher, said, well, that's a funny way to spell the CIA, because up until that point we thought he was, you know, strictly a CIA operative.
Why would you want to work with these people are fucking dumb. Why would you want to work with people that have ties to the CIA in the first place? They're not going to warn you. They're going to fuck you over. Or they're going to use you.
I guess his story slipping. Maybe he forgot, oh, I'm supposed to be...
Like, one thing I'll say about leftists, this guy would not have been allowed to come anywhere near us. Like, he wouldn't have even been allowed to come anywhere near the more stupid elements of the left. Like, as soon as you say CIA, no. You're done.
CIA for these guys?
Shit, they might have even killed themselves.
Guys. You know, and now all of a sudden he's NGA or whatever, and now he's some kind of cross agent or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you don't know about.
Messages provided to News to Share dated March 4th and 5th. Duke appears to suggest that, quote, my cousin's farmhouse blew up after just.
It is technically illegal for the CIA to operate on U.S. soil. That doesn't mean that they don't do it. It's supposed to be illegal for them to kill people too, but they do it.
Discussing explosives with the group on several occasions. He provided the group with photos of the alleged explosion aftermath, which News to Share has not been able to identify the origin of or confirm. Ominously, Duke followed up by writing that, quote, a whole lot of houses burning and going kaboom. I wonder if some subversive force has released some literature and is encouraging these explosions.
Yeah, see? No.
We show up to training with another patriotic group from Virginia that we co-train with a lot. We show up. Unknown to me, he hands Sasquatch a packet that we have already told him.
Sasquatch, confidential, for official use only.
We don't want. We proceed to go through training. We're doing land nav, and me, him, and Sasquatch get paired up on a team. Due to terrain and Sasquatch stature, we let Sasquatch chill while we
Oh, it's good they're not ableist. It's good that they, like, this is the type of dudes you want out in front at the fucking demo or whatever. Yeah, hiking through the woods. It's good that they allow like full play to their members' various strengths and weaknesses.
Participated in land nav, and when we got to a point where there was nobody around, I looked at this individual and told him, hey, turn your phone off. I turned my phone off, and I had a conversation with him about what we had talked about in February and what was going to happen, and that we were not going to be the group that gets Whitmer or any type of Fed plot against us. We're not doing that. So in the woods, he pretty much was, if I could set you up with a Russian dignitary at the Russian embassy.
It always ties back to the fucking Uhuru, the African People's Socialist Party, fucking Black Hammer. They all got in trouble for trying to play footsie with the Russians. Like, why? Do you actually think that you're like a player in this game of 5-dimensional chess? You're a fucking piece. You're half of a pawn. You're not going to manipulate the Russians into backing you, bruh.
That would be willing to pay up to $50,000 a month to unify all militias in Virginia.
Yeah, somebody's going to pay the Russians are going to pay a redneck $50,000 to get a bunch of people like this together. For what purpose? They've got their own boys. What they need you two for?
Virginia. How would that sound to me? I told him he was effing crazy.
Yeah, ICE appears to have more than ice between his ears.
And at that point, I pretty much was just done talking to him, so I turned my phone on so I could get on the map and get us the hell out. Because at that point, I was kind of weirded out.
$50,000 to a bunch of rednecks. This is too good. This is actually entertaining to me.
We get back to where our training room was, and we're in there. We do our second part of training, convoy training. After that was over.
And this type of training, I'm not talking about the crazy shit that Duke asshole was talking about, but this type of training is stuff that leftists actually need to be doing. Because these right-wingers, these patriotic groups or whatever, like, they're doing this shit. Most of them already have experience from the Army. That guy on the right, ICE, he was in the United States Army. Might have even seen combat. And we have a lot of veterans on our side. Of course, leftists, for whatever reason, seem intent on driving them off or driving them insane. But, like, we can make use of people like that, and we can make use of skills like that. When I was at FTP, like, we did marches in the woods and stuff like that a couple times. It's hard getting people together. But, like, there's nothing wrong with doing this type of training as long as you're not, like, ableist and you allow comrades who may not be able to go and do a ruck march through the woods. You allow them the opportunity to do something else that is just as meaningful and just as important to the movement. Just my $5.
Pretty much training concluded for the weekend. And usually we hang out, bullshit, talk, and whatever.
Play with each other's PPs?
Out of the blue, he asked in front of this other group, do we have a plan if a president were to get assassinated, which called
like this. It's like he had a list how to expose yourself as a Fed, and he was just like checking it off every day. Talked about the president, mentioned the Russians paying a bunch of hillbillies $50,000 to unite for some unspecified purpose, homemade explosives.
Us all off guard. We all were like, what the fuck? It's not something you need to talk about. Like, nobody has a plan for that, and it's not something I would care to engage in, talk about. I don't know if you had any feelings about it.
So when you also witnessed that.
Yeah, I was standing right behind him.
So tell that story from your perspective.
So he kind of just like sits there and for a minute, and he looks at the head of the other group, and he asks them straight out if they had a plan in case a president got assassinated. Mind you, I hadn't, because I wasn't in the woods with Ice and Duke. I didn't know of the conversation yet that they just had, that he just said about. Kind of weirds me out now knowing what he said after, but he asked if a president was assassinated, what is your plan? Or do you have a plan if a president gets assassinated? And everyone kind of looked at him like, the fuck? Like, where is this coming from? We just did a convoy class teaching you how not to get fucking lost if you're, driving together and you're over here asking about a presidential assassination. You asked ICE how would we feel if we united all the militias under Russia for $50K a month, and then you
Leftists should get more exercise, but this shit is just LARPing without the magic missiles. Touching PPs in the woods after walking around isn't much but a fun bonding experience. I mean, the left does need more fun bonding experiences. Like, we need to do more shit in person besides just like irritate each other or go get drunk at microbreweries. Like, we actually need to do shit like this. Like, leftists actually did used to do stuff like this. Like, we used to have sports clubs, we used to have shooting clubs, all sorts of stuff. As a matter of fact, the German brigades during the Civil War, they were derived from the Turnverein, which was like exercise clubs, gymnastics clubs. They had shooting clubs. A lot of them brought that tradition over from Germany, where all the guys in the village, they would get together and go hunting or something like that. Like, we do need to bring that back.
all of a sudden go on to speak about presidential assassinations. Are you, what are you getting at? Are you suggesting that the Russians would pay us $50K a month to fucking hit a president? Like, you see where my brain is going here. That scares the ever-living shit out of me. It's not. That's
and the funny thing is, like, this guy, infiltrator, whatever he was, he's fucking stupid. Like, these are patriots. They're not going to do anything to the fucking president of the United States. These guys love the United States. They just think that is going down the wrong path. They love their guns, but these are like good old red-blooded American boys. They're not going to fucking hit a fucking president, Democrat or Republican. You're fucking with the wrong people.
We, as the Virginia Cocoas, while we may not agree with a lot of politicians, that's for sure, we don't condone hurting any of them.
What did I just say? Like, these people literally hurt you if they got the notion that you were going to try to do something to the president. These are American patriots.
He hands me this. He goes into his car, pulls these out, and hands me this. And the reason I didn't open it right away is because I wanted to get inside. It was raining. I got home that night. I threw it down on the couch, and I went, got to relaxing and everything.
God, imagine how bad those boots smell.
Like that. I forgot that it was on my couch, and I came back to open it up to see what it is. Like I said earlier, I thought that maybe it was something that he had said something earlier about some Federalist Papers a couple months ago, so I thought maybe that's what it was, and I was going to look over it. And I end up opening it up, and this is like the first.
It's a letter bomb.
First thing that I see. This is the first thing that I see.
You stupid motherfucker. You're printing out fucking manuals of that stuff and just handing it out?
And I'm like, excuse me? Like, what is this? And I mean, you can see where
you don't know shit about these people. You don't know anything. Yeah, this is a like entrapment 101. You don't know anything about these people, but you're handing out stuff like this.
I'm worried about it because, I mean, it does say unclassified, okay, but it also has a disclaimer, and it says that, it's authorized, distributed, to U.S. government agencies, federal law enforcement, their contractors, and government and military personnel from Australia, New Zealand, and NATO countries. Further distribution of the information contained in this document is strictly prohibited. If further dissemination is required, contact the DIA or whatever the hell that is.
I would love to see a sitcom like this.
And it even tells you how to destroy it. Which to me, that sounds like the way that they would destroy, like classified information or whatever. So it freaked me the hell out. And inside of it, this first one, so that's the second one. Inside of this one, it's literally like showing how to use cellulose, how to get the cellulose, the applications for it, like the whole 9 yards. Let's see, this is something I didn't even, because I didn't look into it. So this is the first time I'm seeing this too. Like, I didn't even look that far into it before I said, fuck this shit. This is in there. Like, what is it?
It's weird because these people are like wildly, like, well, not wildly. They're somewhat endearing. Like, it's like fucking, it's like if fucking Peter Griffin was in a militia.
that even mean? FOUO. I don't know what the hell that is. But I don't know what that means. I'm not in that. I don't know what that is. But yeah, it goes on to, you know, how to use it, how to get it. And then a summary to all of this is like, it has a signature advisory report, like, and there's even more stuff in this, like how to make, like, now granted, everyone's seen the Anarchist Cookbook as a teenager, okay, but it's still just the fact that he's handing me this stuff, you know, how to make things and the advantages of using this one over that one. He's giving me like, oh, this is your key finding. This is why you should use this bomb over this bomb. I'm like, what does this matter to me? And then this is the one that got me. So it scared me the most when I first looked at it, because everybody saw that Air Force guy who leaked out like classified maps and shit over Discord or whatever it does, and the maps that were leaked looked like this, and that's what scared me. I was like, what did he just pass me off? NGA, there's that agency again that he's had before, and it basically goes on to like just different things in different areas, the fucking snake bites and poisons and what's poisonous, what's non-poisonous, and all of this stuff. And I don't know, man, it freaked me out when I saw it. I think this is actually the least of our concerns, is this one. These two are the things that really freak me out.
This is fucking wild. Yep. Let's see here some Hakeem.
Hello. We're back.
This in no way justifies or condones the various negative actions of the Iranian government. As an Iraqi, I have serious criticisms of their political actions and particularly their unending meddling in my country. That being said, sanctions and attempts at starving or otherwise limiting regular Iranians should be rightfully condemned, and Iran shouldn't be changed based on the whims of Western foreign and economic policy. Only the Iranian people should have the choice of changing their government or politics without outside interference.
Hello. We're back with another Why They Hate the USA, going through why various countries dislike American foreign policy and government as a...
Oh, don't go. Come back. What are you running away for? What has Hakeem done for you? Done to you?
direct result of American actions in and around said countries. This hatred very rarely...
He's an Iraqi dude with an opinion on the internet. Some opinions I don't agree with. That doesn't mean I hate him or I refuse to watch him. Honestly, he's one of the few other content creators that I actually watch.
To regular American people, who are likewise victims of the same oppressive structures in other ways, despite at times being beneficiaries of the carnage and interventions the US carries out globally. Today's country is Iran. With an ancient cultural heritage going back thousands of years and boasting the oldest declaration of human rights by Cyrus the Great, this West Asian nation is currently home to approximately 87 million people. For brevity's sake, we'll start with the 20th century, specifically 1921, during which the British supported a coup by Colonel Reza Shah against the last monarch of the Qajar dynasty. It was not a normal coup, however, and while Reza was really in charge from his post as Minister of War, this odd power structure remained in place for only about 4 years till 1925, when he was crowned monarch. As will become a theme in this video, the motivating factor for this coup was, of course, oil.
What do I disagree with Hakeem on? Mainly his position on actually existing socialism. I don't think there's any actually existing socialism. Like, he's more of a traditional ML. I'm a Marxist-Leninist Maoist. So while we're still like of the same ideological root tradition, the same Leninist tradition, MLM has a lot of stuff that's been added to it as a result of the experience of the Chinese Revolution and the subsequent socialist nation building process. That doesn't mean that MLs are my like vested enemies. But it does mean that, like, I think that they're riding around on a donkey cart when the Tesla exists. No, I'm not going to go get a fucking Tesla.
World War II had dramatically changed Britain's priorities, and in the late 1941, they made a deal with USSR to split Iran in two in order to prevent Iranian oil from getting into Nazi hands. The Red Army would invade from the north, and the British would invade from the south.
I love how, like, Europeans just like, hey, yeah, we're just going to go take over this sovereign country that has a history far older than ours is, and yeah, we're just going to take them over and split up their natural resources. This is a major part of why so many people hate the West.
Following World War II, the USSR, per their agreement with Britain, withdrew from Iran. The British, however, didn't. After securing Iranian oil from Britain moving forward, they, quote-unquote, granted Iran independence. It is at this time that the United States, Britain's BFF and daddy, became interested in Iran's internal affairs because of, well, oil. Again, it's a meme for a reason. During the 1949 parliamentary elections, the issue of nationalizing the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company was the #1 issue on people's minds. As a result, many politicians in favor of nationalization, a group called the National Front, were elected by the Mejlis, the Iranian parliament. One politician in particular, Mohammad Mossadegh, helped to pass a bill officially nationalizing the AIOC in 1951. Negotiations with Britain deteriorated following the passage of this bill, and they pressured the Shah to appoint a series of British-friendly prime ministers, all of whom failed. Iran's exercise of sovereignty over their own resources was unacceptable to the UK, so they had to get involved. Back to the video in just a second, let's hear from Keeps. Male pattern baldness is a genetic condition that affects 2 out of every 3 guys by the time they're 35. Get professional care for hair loss from the comfort of your home, without ever visiting a doctor's office or pharmacy. I am currently a hospital doctor, but a million years ago I worked within family medicine and meant it appropriate to address your hair loss concerns. How exactly?
By hair loss concerns, fuck you, Hakeem.
You can adjust, pause, or start your hair loss treatment today. Go to approve the law he would draw up.
My fucking hair loss concerns? What concerns? I look damn fucking good bald.
That would actually implement the nationalization they had recently approved and create the National Iranian Oil Company. The Mejlis approved it unanimously, and Mossadegh was now prime minister. Seeing that the British were adamant about their imperialist claims to Iran's oil reserves, Mossadegh cut off diplomatic relations with Britain in 1952. This was the final straw. Since the UK no longer had an embassy in Iran, they asked the US to overthrow Mossadegh for them. The US, of course, agreed. Unbeknownst to the UK, however, the US was doing so for its own gain, not altruism towards the UK, unsurprisingly. The US gave this task to the CIA, who assigned agent, I kid you not, Kermit Roosevelt. Anyways, this was the grandson of former US President Theodore Roosevelt. Codenamed Ajax, the aim of the operation was to remove Mossadegh and replace him with a Western-friendly successor who will sign away Iranian national resources to the United States. Luckily for the CIA, decades of British colonialism had provided them with several experienced and resourceful Iranian assets, such as sympathetic politicians, military officers, clergymen, newspaper editors, and street gang leaders, in addition to their own Iranian assets. The CIA paid each of these operatives tens of thousands of dollars per month, which would be worth hundreds of thousands per month in today's money.
Your tax dollars at work.
After Roosevelt's first attempt to remove Mossadegh failed, Roosevelt consulted General Norman Schwarzkopf, who advised him to use the CIA to pay
Norman Schwarzkopf? Norman Schwarzkopf. That name sounds really familiar.
The CIA to pay.
Wasn't that the same dude that led the American invasion of Iraq in the Gulf War?
Protesters to riot and appear to be pro-Mossadegh so as to give pretext for CIA assets in key places in the Iranian military to remove him. This second attempt, which began immediately after the failure, did eventually succeed, but not until a long and bloody struggle outside his home. The Shah was now in total control of the country. The US-backed coup led to a substantial depreciation in the power of the Mejlis, which allowed the Shah a freer hand to rule autocratically. First order of business was to declare martial law. He then strengthened the feared Savak, the Shah's brutal secret police force, and charged them with suppressing all opposition and dissent within Iran. With Mossadegh gone, an American, British, and European gang of companies, collectively known as the Iranian Oil Participants Limited, descended on Iranian oil, accepting, quote-unquote accepting, a 50-50% revenue split in the interest of oil barons. In order for the Shah to have some face saved, the agreement nominally recognized the nationalization, but the IOP controlled production levels and pricing, leaving the NIOC to only have control over distribution within Iran. Basically, the Shah gave up the hard-won sovereignty over Iranian oil. Unsurprisingly, this was highly unpopular with the public. In addition to controlling Iran's oil, the US helped prop up the Shah's new government under General Zahedi by providing $43 million in economic assistance, equivalent to around $500 million today. In 1955, Iran joined the colonial Baghdad Pact, later known as the Central Treaty Organization, following Iraq's withdrawal from the pact in 1958, because we're based. This was a defense treaty including Iraq, Turkey, and Pakistan. The United Kingdom and the United States served as observer members, because they're always right next door, I guess. Income inequality grew, discrimination against the religious, the vast majority of the Iranian population, by official organs was widespread, and opportunities for rural communities dwindled as a bloated royal family siphoned off wealth for their Western patrons and took what was left for themselves.
Many such cases.
As discontent grew, a certain clergyman named Khomeini was gaining prominence. He had been arrested several times in the 1960s for staunch outspokenness against the government and the Shah. Following his arrest in June of 1963, riots in favor of Khomeini broke out. This riot would lead to Khomeini's exile the following year to Iraq and eventually France. Amid economic turmoil, the Shah continued to make ever more desperate moves. Violent suppression of the ever-growing protests against the Shah and the human rights violations taking place in Savak prisons didn't help. Khomeini was leading a growing opposition movement that was becoming a serious political force throughout the 1970s. Khomeini returned to Iran to a crowd of millions of supporters on February 1st, 1979. While Khomeini was one of the more popular figures during the time of the revolution, another was the communists of the Tudeh party, who were united against the Shah. The United States is watching this unfold and is of course extremely nervous about the prospect of a socialist Iran, which would then become another ally of the USSR, naturally. Presented with this choice, the United States decided to support the movement led by Khomeini by supplying his group with arms. On February 11th, Khomeini's forces had taken control over key points in the capital. Students filled with zeal during all of this fervor headed to the United States Embassy in Tehran, which was filled with a few staff members as well as over 50 CIA agents manically shredding all of the detailed documentation about how the US pulled off the coup against Mossadegh in 1953. Unfortunately for those agents, the students would make their way into the embassy and
We do believe there's a difference between American people and the government. From every protest in the Middle East, you see this. Like, they basically consider Aaron Bushnell amongst the highest of martyrs. So when idiots talk about, oh, they hate us, they hate our country, no, they hate our government. They actually are quite fond of the American people. They just want us to get up off our asses and help with their struggle.
hold them hostage until 1981. Called the Iran hostage crisis, it became a pivotal moment in US-Iran relations. During the 444-day crisis, students and various militant groups negotiated with the US, beginning with Jimmy Carter and his administration, who flatly refused to give anything in return for the hostages. These were overwhelmingly CIA assets that the US didn't want to acknowledge the existence of, given the work they had been carrying out for decades. In fact, so impotent was Tehran to the CIA that it became the headquarters for all CIA operations in Asia, and was provided the minting plates for $20 bills. The latter fact is fairly astounding, since minting plates are only provided to Federal Reserve branches and only in the US. The reason for the CIA having this ability to mint $20 bills is due to the obscene amount of money they need to carry out operations and bribes before the era of electronic wire transfers. Anyway, upon catching these CIA agents shredding massive amounts of evidence, middle and high school students came together to piece together the ripped up paper like a puzzle. They were successful and now had a treasure trove of documents spelling out in excruciating detail who, when, where, why, and how the 1953 coup was carried out. They immediately made these documents freely available to the world. Still, the US wouldn't budge.
This is why you burn your secret documents.
The decade and Jimmy Carter's term would end with a brand new conflict brewing, and of course, the US needed to be involved in it. Immediately following the revolution, the then leader of Iraq, Saddam Hussein, praised Khomeini's revolution, seeking good ties with Iran following the overthrow of the Shah. However, Khomeini wasn't fond of Saddam or his government, for discriminatory religious reasons, and instead of thanking him, called for a similar revolution in Iraq, which would grant control of Iraq over to Iran, a historic tendency of Persian expansionism no matter the ideological justification. Iran started border raids into Iraq, which Iraq publicly complained of to the UN, with hundreds of incidents to no avail. Iran continued, with the organization of clandestine cells in Iran carrying out a campaign of attacks, bombings, and raids inside Iraqi territory, with the most famous example being the bomb attack targeting Iraq's Christian Deputy Prime Minister Tariq Aziz in the University of Mustansariya. Iraq responded to these events with a final protest note, warning the Iranians that their military incursions and attacks would be met with retaliatory military action. Following no response, Iraq launched preemptive military action, a warning against supporting an Iranian-style Islamic quote-unquote Islamic revolution in Iraq, and was clearly planned on being rather limited in scope to all observers. However, the limited military operation turned into a bloody, full-scale, 8-year-long war. That's a story for another day, though.
Dun dun dun.
While Khomeini accepted US help to get into power, his preaching turned anti-American pretty quickly, mostly because the vast mass of Iranians were themselves anti-imperialist. During the Reagan regime in the United States, relations between the two countries deteriorated to the point where the US officially sold weapons to Iraq, but unofficially, clandestine efforts to sell missiles to Iran were underway in a controversy known as the Iran-Contra affair.
And Israel was funding and sending weapons to Iran as well. It's basically, yeah, let's just let the Arabs and, well, Iranians, Persians aren't Arabs, but let's just let the Middle Easterners kill each other. Let's fund everybody.
The US profiteering by selling weapons to both sides of a conflict is a tale as old as time, given its status as a major arms dealer on the world stage. Meanwhile, a democratically elected leftist government took power in Nicaragua. Reagan's government didn't like this, of course, so they arranged CIA assets and US military material to arm right-wing death squads, known as the Contras, in Nicaragua, while appearing to follow the recently passed law explicitly forbidding the United States from providing arms to said Contras. For those unaware, the Contras were a brutal reactionary, counter-revolutionary movement opposing the democratically elected FSLN, commonly known as the Sandinistas. The gist of the plan was as such. The US would sell Iran missiles and other arms in exchange for the release of hostages, take the money from those sales to fund the Contras in Nicaragua so that the money used in the latter could not be tied to governmental accounting, thereby technically following the aforementioned law. Additionally, the US government collected donations from wealthy Americans and secretly transferred those funds to the Contras. Iran was to receive 100 anti-tank missiles, but in order to mask the fact that they were US supplied, the actual transfer of arms went between Israel and Iran. Reagan would go on to deny any knowledge of these operations after a leaked memo broke the story, causing the well-known scandal.
In New York City, a plane has crashed right into the World Trade Center.
The United States military has begun strikes against al-Qaeda terrorist training camps and military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan.
Fast forward to the early 2000s, after 9/11, the United States responded by going to war with Afghanistan later in the year. In 2003, the US would illegally and under fabricated pretenses invade and criminally occupy Iraq. During this time, US President George W. Bush was often making unhinged nationalistic speeches, enjoying record-high approval rates, and generally...
I remember my childhood. Yep. The main voice of my childhood was the shitty drawl of George W. Bush.
Beating his chest on the national stage. Just before invading Iraq, he made his famous 2002 State of the Union address, wherein he first referred to Iraq, Iran, and the DPRK as an axis of evil. If it's a bad thing, then why does it have such a cool name? The claim about Iran specifically was that the country aggressively pursues these WMDs and exports terror, while an unelected few repress the Iranian people's hope for freedom, which is an excellent example of every accusation is a confession. But I digress. While the US had sanctioned Iran in 1979 under the pretense that Iran was supporting terrorism, the modern sanctions regime against Iran began in 2006 with UN Security Council Resolution 1737. In 2015, the UN Security Council facilitated an agreement between Iran, China, France, Germany, Russia, the UK, and the US. The aim of this agreement, according to US President Obama, was a comprehensive long-term deal with Iran that will prevent it from obtaining a nuclear weapon. The actual agreement was weak, but was touted as a major...
Why do we care if Iran has a nuclear weapon? We got plenty of nuclear weapons. We've got enough nuclear weapons to destroy the entire world 200 times over, and Iran can't have one pissy-ass nuke.
Major win for the administration. Only 3 years later...
We should be going after the Israelis because they literally stole the nuclear secrets from us.
Trump would pull the United States out of the deal. Since 2016, US-Iran relations have backslid dramatically. After Trump pulled the US out of the nuclear deal in 2018, he almost immediately imposed sanctions he claimed were aimed at forcing Iran to dramatically alter its policies in the region, including...
Wow. MAGA-coms are coping and seething at this like they're big fans of Trump, but they're also big fans of Iran.
including its support for militant groups across the Middle East and its development of ballistic missiles, not a flaccid effort at regime change. In 2019, the US said it would sanction anyone that buys Iranian oil in an effort to further kneecap their economy. Not yet content with making the lives of Iranians absolutely miserable, the US attempted to force other nations to comply with arms sanctions in 2020. However, these sanctions were new and many countries had to explain in no uncertain terms that the US doesn't have the legal authority to force them to abide by this particular set of sanctions. The new sanctions were against 27 individuals and entities, including officials at the Iranian Ministry of Defense, nuclear scientists, the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran, and anyone found trading in conventional weapons with Iran. Later in 2020, one more round of sanctions was leveled at Iran, this time at the financial sector, targeting 18 Iranian banks in an effort to further shut down Iran out of the global banking system. The sanctions regime against Iran is unconscionable and amounts to collective punishment of the Iranian people, despite the claim from the US to the contrary, and unfortunately there is no end of them in sight.
Fuck sanctions. That's the most evil thing you can do. Like, it's bad enough that you're already meddling in this country's affairs, but let's make everybody starve to death. What is my warlord nickname? Black Red Larper. That person must not like their head very much. The Red Duke of St. Louis. Too fucking plain. Settler's Bane. That's the name of my sword. Still BRG, but the G stands for General. Funny. Zedong II. Mao X. That's pretty bad. That's not bad. Red Blackguard. No. American Joe. Also no. Thinking about how the founder of the Nation of Islam was a guy who used 58 different aliases, randomly showed up in Detroit one day and started preaching to the black population and disappeared. He's never been found, and almost nothing is known about his real identity. His name is supposed to be Wallace Ford, and apparently he was a grifter from New Zealand, according to the FBI. Of course, the FBI has never lied to anybody in human history. Black Red Guard. You are going to have to come in from out of town to lead the struggle session that the entire city of Atlanta is going to be going through, apparently. No, you don't want me to do that, because I'm going to end up putting 75% of the city to the sword. Hey, Phalangists in Lebanon are up to their old tricks. Christian fascist militias. Beating up Syrian refugees. Inshallah, Hezbollah drives them all to the Mediterranean Sea. It's Layla Khaled's birthday. The first woman to hijack a plane. She was born in Haifa. She was forced to flee during a Nakba, and she joined the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. Here's a cool pic my brother took of the eclipse yesterday. And let's wrap with America in one image. Everybody's enjoying the eclipse, but... see these? Handcuffs. You can't even look up at the fucking sun. And hey, this guy, where's this guy's shades? Are you trying to make this guy blind? So, yeah, we'll let you look at the eclipse, but you're still going to keep your fucking handcuffs on. And these two are handcuffed to each other, and this guy's handcuffed alone. Goddamn America. It won't stop until